Welcome to Inspire and Move, the show that inspires you to create, connect, and grow. I'm going to bring you meaningful conversations, aha moments, and all the motivation you need to up-level every part of your life. I'm Ali Aruda, founder of Inspire and Move, and your personal hype girl. I've gone from fashion school to celebrity stylist to corporate marketing to brick-and-mortar entrepreneurship with my husband, each time learning incredible lessons how to pivot, reimagine, and implement the steps to become successful. I'm passionate about inspiring others to live their best life, a life of joy. We have the power to design a life that we love, because life is too short not to. The best part is that you weren't meant to do this alone. If you feel like you are meant for more, let me ride shotgun with you, and together, let's get you to where you want to go. Hello, you guys. Welcome back to the Inspire and Move podcast. I am your host, Ali Aruda, and today's episode is a solo one, but it is inspired by the book that I just finished. So if you are watching this on YouTube, you can see the book cover. It is called Fighting for Our Friendships, and the author is Danielle Bayard Jackson. And this book came recommended from all of our friends, Mel Robbins. I had heard Danielle on the Mel Robbins podcast, and I was immediately intrigued by the topic, by the book. So I not only listened to the excellent interview between Danielle and Mel Robbins, but also immediately ordered the book. So I will make sure that I link it in the show notes for all of you that are interested, because female friendships and adult female friendships are all so fascinating to me. And I think I am extra invested in it because of becoming so passionate about curating community and curating events for women to build community, to network, and to make new friends. So all of this, plus my own personal experience with friendship breakups, making new friends, navigating how friendships sort of seem to change, and they might not be a quote unquote breakup, but they also shift and they evolve, or they just kind of dissipate. And Danielle Bayard Jackson touched on a lot of this in the book. And I finished it yesterday, sitting by the pool, just enjoying some quality quiet time. And I immediately knew that I had to record a podcast. I'm also going to take a stab at asking Danielle to come on the podcast, because I think that would provide the most value for all of you. But I wanted to hop on here, record something for you guys, and give you some takeaways that I really found to be of value. And I wanted to share it all with you in real time, because the root of this is, have you ever felt the challenge of maintaining friendships when, life gets busier? And that could be the world of entrepreneurship, getting married, becoming a mom, getting your first pet, moving, changing in your parents, everything. Life is busy and ever evolving for everyone. And as we get busier, or we have these busier seasons, and you want to know how to navigate your friendships at the same time. So if any of this kind of sounds familiar, buckle up. We won't be here for a long time, but we will be here for a good time, an impactful time. And so one of the things I wanted to start off by kind of bringing to your attention and sharing with you guys is when you are in the quote unquote hot seat with a friend, and how you can communicate effectively. And I thought this was so interesting because, and I'm going to go through this, I literally have the book in front of me with dog-eared pages and my notes, so bear with me. But one of the things I first wanted to talk about is that we live in such a digital age, and navigating female friendships in a digital age can be kind of weird. And I think it is really easy to overanalyze. I don't know about you, but as a female, I am very easily to be one that overanalyzes anything and everything. Saying that with like a little inflection there at the end, maybe a bit of a question mark. But there is a note here about the real issue at the heart of these scenarios. So that would be, let's call it quote unquote conflict, is a lack of awareness over, quote, digital body language, end quote. And this phrase of digital body language was coined by someone named Erica Dawan. And she's an executive leader and an author who teaches skills to leaders across the world. And as soon as I read digital body language, I kind of already got the gist of what she was talking about, that we obviously all know what our physical body language is, but in a world that is so digital, wanting to understand or better understand what that digital body language is. And that could be something like a really long text that's very essay-like, and it could be thoughtful, but it also could be seen as dramatic or intense. And then you then reply like a 2-word something, or vice versa. You have someone who is either being really intense with a long message or being really heartfelt with a long message, and the response that is met is very short. So that is sort of one thing to look for when it comes to that digital body language. Use of emojis and punctuation. I am so guilty for this, and I don't think it's a bad thing. It literally says using emojis can be interpreted as playful or not, and they can function as softeners for otherwise intense messages, and they can infuse personality into the text that is dry. I have been like this for so long, where I really love using exclamation marks. I love using emojis. And I am one, you guys, I do not like conflict. I have gotten more comfortable with it in the more recent years, probably also since I've become an entrepreneur. I think there's so much skill building that comes with entrepreneurship, and not that conflict is something that you're looking for, but you just look at problems differently because you immediately want to look at for the solution. And I think when you can approach your friendships and relationships that same way, wanting to be solution oriented, that's really important. And so I have always been one to use emojis and exclamation marks where I can, because I think it is more of a softer approach depending on what it is that you are including as a message. There also is a reference here of the mode. So whether that be a text message, a Instagram DM, or an email, other social media DMs, doesn't matter necessarily which one you choose. Obviously that is personal depending on what's going on, but there are so many ways that you can communicate with one. And then also, what is the urgency of how you are going to open and reply to that message? And that goes beautifully right into response time. That the amount of time that passes from when you send a message to a friend and when a friend responds may not matter in some circumstances. However, sometimes delays can be read as avoidance, power plays, and a lack of care. And then on the flip side, a quick response can be seen as attentive, anxious, or controlling. I know, you're probably thinking like, well, what the heck? How do you win? But I thought that these were just interesting details that she had included in the book, because it's probably something that we can all relate to, whether it is, oh my gosh, and those gray bubbles, if you have an iPhone that you're texting with a friend, then you see those bubbles in the iPhone, it's like this long waiting time. So I thought this was really interesting, especially thinking of it as the phrase about digital body language. I thought that was really appropriate. But some of the other things I wanted to share with you guys, that was actually later on in the book, was talking about friendship values. And it's interesting because I was actually having this conversation with my trainer last week, telling her about the book. I started it just a few weeks ago. I haven't been reading it for very long, and now I'm finished. But just sharing with her some of the key takeaways that I had read up until that point in, when we were having this conversation during one of my workouts. And she actually suggested, when it comes to friendship values, or now we're using friendship values as the term from the book, but I probably have shared this on the podcast previously, that before Matt and I started dating, I went through a pretty substantial breakup with an ex, and I was sitting having a glass of wine with my best friend Rochelle after I moved out of his house and was in sort of the messy middle. It was like 2 weeks of it was not good. It was chaotic, but it was messy. And you know what? It was only 2 weeks. It wasn't that long in hindsight. And here we are on the other side, living this big, beautiful life. So honestly, I'm kind of grateful for that messy component, to be honest. So Rochelle and I are sitting having a glass of wine, chatting about, what's next. And she was getting ready to end a long-term relationship herself. So we were chatting about what it is that we were looking for in our future boyfriends and husbands. And she suggested that I write this list of what I would be looking for in my dream guy. So I did, and tucked it away. And then like a year later, Matt and I are together. I've moved in with Matt. And it was actually when we were packing up our house to move into our current house that we bought together, I found this piece of paper in a cookbook, which is hilarious because Matt is the cook in our relationship and he's such a good cook. And I found this list, and it was an amazing exercise because I reviewed this list, and everything that I wrote down as a desire for my future partner, Matt checked off. So I love telling the story, especially for girls that are maybe in a messy middle right now, or maybe you're happily single, but you look forward to attracting this, amazing man down the road. I love sharing the practice of writing everything down. You also know I love writing down goals and visualization. So it's really, truly amazing how it all comes together. So this is my long-winded point into saying that my trainer Jess was saying how like, oh my gosh, maybe we should do this for friendship lists and, attracting new friendships. I was like, that's a great idea because, we do this for our future man. Why wouldn't you do that for the future friend? And I have heard this actually referenced in a couple different ways on a few different podcasts more recently about becoming the friend that you want to be friends with. So what is the best version of you that is going to attract that type of friend that you want to call in, that you want to have in your life? And so this notion in the book that is Fighting for Our Friendships, this is the book we're talking about, Danielle talks about identifying your friendship values and going through and taking some intentional time and writing down what it is that you are looking for. And there's a good quote that I wanted to include as well. She says, when you know your friendship values, you can create connections that feel both intentional and fulfilling. So I think you have some opportunity here to have some fun. Maybe pour yourself a glass of wine, pour yourself a kombucha, and just journal on or write it on a separate piece of paper and tuck it away somewhere what it is that you would want in a future friend, a best friend. I think there's lots of room to have multiple best friends. I do. A lot of them don't even live in this country. So there's lots of space to have multiple friends and being really intentional with what you want to prioritize for who you want to call in and sitting in that mindset of attracting those friends. And I will include this here that you also need to go out and make an effort to find some of these new friends. So depending on what you write on this list, what are these values that are important to you? Where can you go out and take action to find friends that might also share those values? And I'm going to use one that is so familiar to me with the value would be loves to work out, loves to exercise, be healthy. That can be a multitude of things that you would write down. But to me, I would be looking for a new friend that is someone who values exercise and being in good shape and being healthy. So where would I go to find those friends? A gym or a fitness studio and work out, take classes. If you're going to an open gym, I'd even encourage you to try to find a bit of a rhythm, a bit of a routine. If you're someone who loves to work out at 9, then maybe that is your time because you are probably going to find the other people that like to work out at 9. And, maybe you are someone that loves books. So maybe you spend time at the bookstore, at the library. So taking that intentional time, look at your list. What are those friendship values that you are looking for? And then where can you be in proximity of people that would have those same values? You probably know, listening to this or following me on social media, I host the event, The Girlfriends Walk. Right now, we are in Burlington, Ontario, Oakville, Ontario. We typically do host 1 to 2 a year in the US. I'm really excited about that. And a big part of that is community building and networking and building female friendships, because it can be kind of hard and weird and unfamiliar to make new friends as an adult, especially if maybe you've moved and you're in a new area, a new city. So again, I encourage you to go back to that list of values and spend some time in the places that would put you in proximity of people that would value the same things as you. So now going a little bit deeper, when you want to deepen your friendships, she is Danielle, the author, includes something called the ADORE practice, which stands for appreciation, desire, openness, reliability, and experiences. And breaking those down so that you can strengthen your friendships with each of those. And another quote that I wanted to include was, friendships thrive not by chance, but through consistent and deliberate care. And friendships are it literally has half of the word of relationships in it, that they take work and you need to be intentional. And this is something that I I'm probably actually quite hard on myself, if I'm going to be really honest with all of you listening or watching, that I will always try to think about that is, am I a good enough friend? Have I checked in? Have I asked for photos of my friends' children? I'm in a season of life where a lot of my friends have a beautiful family, whether it's 1, 2, 3, or more children, trying to be involved with what is going on in their life. That I am in a very different season than some of my friends that are having their first, second, or third, fourth, or fifth babies, but wanting to still be involved and excited about what is happening in their life. And so adopting something like this adore practice where you can really get clear on how you want to show up. And I think there are wonderful ways of, surprise and delights where you just want to send your friend a thoughtful text, or if you're in the same area, you want to surprise them with a coffee. But sometimes it's even more like looking at the A for appreciation. Sometimes it actually is more than that, where you actually just want to shout out something more specifically that is more specific to them, something that they have achieved in their business, or maybe how they parent. Just an opportunity to show the recognition that you see them and that you appreciate them, and so that they really truly feel seen. The next one that we can go through is desire. And I know that probably sounds a little strange. It sounds like a bit more of a romantic word of what you desire, but there's something so beautiful about being very clear on what it is that you desire in life, between what you want to achieve in your business, what you want your romantic relationships to look like with your partner, and also with your friends. For someone like myself, I'll use a personal example that I would desire a really cozy girls' night in, drinking nice wine and having deep, meaningful conversations. I don't really want to talk about the weather. I don't want to gossip about people. I want to know what it is that you're excited about. What are your big goals? How are you taking action, or what are you stuck in? And being able to have these deep, thoughtful conversations where you can look that person in the eye, you can truly hear them, what's going on, and you can go deep and not just have these surface level conversations. That is something that I desire, and that would be also on my value sheet of what I am looking for in a new friendship. But also I would desire to go to a sweaty workout class. Let's challenge ourselves and let's go get an overpriced smoothie after, or a really delicious coffee, or a matcha. Those are things to me that are fun and that I would desire. So that's sort of something that you want to get clear on what it is, and being able to also understand, if you're talking about, a 2-person relationship for this friendship, understanding what each of you desire. So if you have a friend that maybe doesn't work out, then you can understand okay, well, what is it that we do both enjoy, or what's something that is important to you, and let's do that one time. And then this is important to me, so let's do this one time. And being able to ensure that both of you feel seen and supported. Next, we're going to move on to O for openness. And I liked this, how she said that, a lot of us as women, we fear being vulnerable, and we feel being vulnerable in 4 ways. And I'm just going to read this verbatim from the book because I thought this was really eye-opening. We fear being rejected for looking weak. Example, what if I look too sensitive? Weird. What if this makes me different from anyone else? Wrong. What if I look foolish? And wonderful. What if they think I'm shining too brightly? The key is to create a space where it's safe to take those kind of risks. Your friends should know that it's okay to be open, because you'll do your best to make sure they don't feel judged, attacked, or misunderstood. Openness in the beginning stages of friendship building also sets the foundation for people to navigate conflict without the use of defense mechanisms down the road. And that kind of authenticity is key in resilient friendships. So that was something I just read from the book, because that really stood out for me, because I have totally been in that place where I've wondered oh my God, do I look super strange and weird? Or what about this? What about this? Again, it goes back to the over analyzing that. I don't know about you, but I have 2 hands up. I am guilty for that. But this, I felt seen reading that. And so I wanted to read that verbatim for you guys to understand it as well. And I think that showing an edge of vulnerability is almost an opportunity to let your guard down and make space for deeper connection. But on the flip side, you want to be careful with how vulnerable you are and how much you share. I, again, probably am a bit guilty for oversharing. I'm a very open and trusting person. And you just want to make sure that you're not putting yourself in a situation where that could come back and bite you in the ankles. Nobody wants that. Okay, moving on to R for reliability. And we know that trust is important in a friendship, but you want to make sure that you are demonstrating to your friends that they can count on you. And I'm just referencing the book here. Demonstrating reliability can buffer any uncertainty or skepticism that may begin to grow within us when we're experiencing everything from a momentary disagreement to a long season of tension. When you know that someone's dependable, it makes you respect her and keep the faith during times of conflict. I think, again, going back to the idea that we are in a very digital world right now, having friendships that you can depend on and that are reliable are really important. And depending on what you are going through in life, I've gone through a season of heartache and heartbreak with loss and grief. And that is a really interesting time. I feel like I'm going to back up. I feel like there are some really powerful seasons in one's life, especially as a female, when you get to experience what your friendship audit is looking like. I think the whole timing of getting married and, leading up to the wedding, choosing your bridal party, showers, bachelorettes, and now it's even a whole new scale. But I think that, like, sort of your season of getting married is one. I would imagine that having a baby is another one. Opening a business is another. And grief, losing someone that you love, losing a family member. And I've gone through a few of those between, getting married and opening a business, navigating a really challenging time in a business. And so then on the other side, celebrating big, beautiful wins. And it is amazing, like, what you can see, what happens when you go through some of those things. And I'm sure you guys listening or watching can relate to that. If you have gone through any of these or all of these, where things do change and you see things and you learn things, and then you can course correct of what that looks like and navigate it accordingly coming out of that. So being able to be a really reliable, dependable friend, that is something that you want to really recognize and dive into, lean into with those friendships that you really want to deepen. And then lastly, of that adore practice is experiences. And when we share experiences with our friends, it not only attaches deeper meaning to the experience itself, but we associate those positive feelings with the person we shared the experience with. So look for ways that you can enjoy different things with each other. And, there could be things as easily that you would do all the time, like cooking or trying a new recipe or a Netflix show. But maybe you have a bestie that doesn't live in the same city or country as you. So maybe you actually do watch the same show on very different time zones, but you can compare notes. I hear a lot of people that talk about Love Island. I don't watch that show. I might be maybe the only person, so don't hate. But something like that, if it's a really trendy show and you watch it and your friend watches it at the same time in their home, and then you can have a weekly touch base. I feel like the Bachelor Nation was really great for that also. But finding things that are important to both of you and how you could experience them together, whether they are long distance, so you do have to get a little bit more creative, or if they are local and you want to try something new together. Maybe you go experience a bunch of new yoga studios or Pilates studios, or you try every flavor of kombucha that Whole Foods sells. I don't know. Now I'm just spitballing ideas, but you can take these ideas and make them yours. And I think really recognizing how friendships are such a gift. And when there's friendship gaps, they can feel isolating. And so that you want to be able to navigate that, and that friendship isn't just about who you know, it's about the environments that you create and where you let friendships bloom. And I'm going to go back to the idea of when I was talking about building those friendship values or building that list, is putting yourself in the proximity of people that you want to get to know. You want to blossom with deeper friendships, making new friendships and nurturing them. And it really is like dating. It's been a long time since I've gone on dates, but friendship dates. I actually had one a couple Saturdays ago. And I remember saying to Matt, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm kind of nervous. We've never hung out before. And she's going to come over. We're going to have some wine by the pool. And it was lovely. And it was an opportunity to get to know her better and chat more about, okay, where are you from? This is where I'm from. Wanted to understand like her journey of having kids, that they're two different ages and what kind of schools do they go to, and being able to ask questions. And that is something that I think is a hack in life and being successful in relationships and in business, is asking questions, but ensuring that you are also listening on the other end, like holding space for what it is that they are going to share with you and listening intently to them, and probably having follow-up questions or being able to dive into something deeper. Maybe they do open up and share a trauma or something that they have experienced, and perhaps you can relate, or you have a different experience that you can offer support. But being able to nurture those relationships and make note of what's going on in their life. This, again, I've referenced how I have so many friends that have entered a season of motherhood, some for the first time, some for additional time. For the last couple of months, I have had a friend's due date in my calendar, I think since February. And just being sure that you are checking in, like, how are you feeling? Do you have your hospital bag packed? Like, asking questions. Obviously, again, I am novice. I have not gone through it, but I've had enough friends that have, and I want to ensure that I am asking questions and knowing, like, I can always do better. I can always be a better friend. And that is, I think, the achiever part of me, that I always want to do better. And if you can have that mindset in a friendship, well, then good for you. But being able to recognize how you can be so intentional in your relationships. Now, I feel like I kind of bounced around with what I shared from the book. I am probably going to do an episode on this again. I just knew I wanted to share something right away because this book was really high value for me and gave me some great insights of navigating, conflict in friendships and how you have conversations. Again, I don't like conflict. I get that from my dad. I really, really don't like it. But sometimes you need to just grab the bull by the horns and you have to have a conversation. And I think ensuring that you are setting yourself up for success with the conversation, going into it with a calm, controlled state, and sharing something that's on your heart. You don't need to go in and be, not accusing them of what it is that you heard or what you thought they did, or, whatever the situation may be, but allowing them the opportunity to say, yes, I did. Or maybe they have to owe you an apology. Maybe you have to apologize. Maybe you called a coffee date or a get together and you have something on your heart that you need to apologize for. And being able to own an apology with confidence and being sincere about it, that is a talent, but that is also something that we can work on. It's not just something that you're going to wake up and be great at. You do have to work on that, and you also have to care. And that comes down to a lot of these things. A lot of the things in this book comes down to, how do you care? Do you care about the person that you want to nurture the friendship with, that you want to ensure that you're doing exciting things with, that you are reliable for them? There was so many good things in here. I have so many pages dog-eared. I'm actually shocked I didn't use a highlighter because normally I love to highlight my books. But there are a lot of dog-eared pages, and I very much look forward to having the author on the show. I'm just going to put that manifestation out here, because talking about female friendships, especially, again, in adulthood, is actually something that I enjoy, because I've done a few episodes on this before previously. I love talking about having friendships for reasons, seasons, lifetimes. I have gone through friendship breakups. I've had 2 really tough, emotional friendship breakups. I don't know why my voice just cracked. That was not super ideal. But one of them, it took me 2.5 years to get over. And they are so much worse than a romantic breakup. I haven't broken up with any guys that is even close to being as emotional as a friendship breakup. And sometimes there's actually space to, quote unquote, get back together. But that could be, everyone's situation is unique. But that has crossed my mind as well, to be like, oh, it's been a couple of years. Maybe I'm actually going to reach out to this friend and see if maybe there's an open door. Who knows? But I really like talking about friendships. I like curating relationships to, connect people that would actually benefit from each other. And there was one reference in here talking about a friendship concierge. And I really identify with that, because I think that's something, as a community builder, someone that is so passionate about building community and hosting events like the Girlfriends Walk, that I could be your friendship concierge. What do you need? What are you looking for? Let me help you. So that kind of really rung true. And I think that's a good takeaway for you guys. I'm going to say my two biggest takeaways is making that friendship value list, having some fun writing that down, journal about it, put it on a piece of paper, tuck it away, but also then taking that next step of looking at that friendship value list and identifying the values that are most important to you and finding places where you can spend time. Where can you be in proximity of people that would value the same thing? And then my second takeaway for you would be try to find a friendship concierge. Maybe there's a few. Is it someone that's really well known in your community where you live, or your gym, or your book club, whatever it may be? Identify them and ask them to help you. I don't think anyone's going to say no, like, oh, sorry, I don't want to help you make new friends, because that's bad juju. But finding people that could help you with that. And hey, if you are local in the Ontario area, like Burlington, Oakville, Toronto, anywhere in sort of, well, close proximity in like Ontario GTA, let's call it, come on and join a girlfriend's walk. I would love to have you. I love connecting people that are like-minded, that are energetic matches for each other, and just expanding your community, your social circle. Maybe you can network for business, but you could also make some new friends. And that's exciting. And that's hard when we're older. So putting those dates on your calendar, if you can find events that would be in an aligned fit to help you make some new friends, that's important to take action on too. So thank you for being here today, everyone. Thank you for listening to my little TED Talk about fighting for our friendships, this book that I loved by Danielle Bayard Jackson. Again, I'm going to link it in the show notes. It was great. And I'm going to manifest having her on the podcast and having a really great interview about it. And if you need anything in terms of, a friendship concierge, I am just a DM away. I would love to connect with you. I would love to support you. And as always, thank you so much for your support for the Inspire and Move podcast, being a part of the community. So much love and gratitude for you. And we will see you again soon. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. If you loved this episode, it would mean so much to me if you took a few seconds and shared this on social media, sent it to a friend, or left a 5-star review. There is power in community, and I'm so grateful to have you part of mine.